been a few months now since I've had Starlink. Done a lot of traveling with it, so I've used it in various locations and in various weather conditions. So I thought it was about time that I gave you my review of Starlink Roam, as it's called now. It used to be called RV, but it's now Roam. First thing I want to get over is cost. Now, if you want to buy this up front, it's about £450. Although now they're doing two little sort of special deals. You can get refurbished ones for about £180. So probably one as used and knackered as mine. But you still get a 12-month warranty and it still works fine. Or you can rent it as well, apparently, for £10 a month. And as far as ongoing costs, I'm paying £85 per month for unlimited data. That's basically wherever I am, and no matter how many devices I connect to it. We'll talk about speeds and bandwidth and everything else shortly, but £85 a month gets you internet, unlimited, no matter where you are. So you can't really argue with that. So I've made a few notes. These are from questions that I've been asked and just my general observations. So I'm going to talk about how easy it is to set up. So the initial setup, including setting your account up, paying for your first payment, etc. I'm also going to talk about power consumption, mainly because I live in my camper van, and predominantly everything works off my habitation batteries and power station. And therefore I have to power things like this because it's 240 via an inverter. So that takes an amount of power. I'm also going to talk about conversion to 12 volt DC and talk about whether that actually is worth it or not. And I'm also going to talk about mounting it, where I've got it mounted on my van, how I put it up and take it down. And I'm also going to talk about flat conversion kits. So just kind of like permanently roof mount it and the pros and cons of all them. So let's get into the first thing straight out of the box. It's very simple. You've got the antenna, which they call dishy, the router, which is also the power supply, and the Wi-Fi, and then there's two cables. There's a mains cable that powers the router, and then there's a proprietary cable that goes between the router and the dish, which obviously gives the dish its power and obviously transmits the data to and from the dish from the router. And also included in the box is the mount, to which you click and attach the dishy into. So the first setup is quite easy. I've put the base on my roof of my camper van. I've got some track mats on the roof that are secure, and I've put the base securely attached to that. So I can just go up my back ladder, put this, click it into the base, but it does mean that obviously I can very easily just put it up onto the roof and then come back down. The cable just goes through the back doors. So once I've got the dishy on the roof, the cables are all connected. I then plug this into my 240 volt, so my AC shore power. The only way you can tell that it's actually then powered up is there's a tiny white LED underneath there. And then the rest of it is done through an app, the Starlink app. And obviously that involves you registering an account, which includes giving them your payment details and your address, what type of plan that you want as well. So are you using it in a fixed location, or are you using it like me to roam around? And if you are using it to roam around, which region are you roaming in? So you can have like America, USA, Canada, South America, you can have Africa, and the region I've chosen, which is Europe. You do get 14 days without charge, although they've taken all your bank details and everything else. You get 14 days without charge to essentially try it out, sort of a trial period, see if you like it or not. So yeah, you are up and running. You will notice then that dishy will start to move and kind of work out where it is in the world. The Starlink app will tell you what dishy is doing. So it'll say powering up, joining Starlink network. It would basically then turn into sort of different modes of that it's establishing a connection to being online, to also it might come up with weird messages to say that it's struggling to orient or to find its location or something like that. And I guess that is dependent on the weather. I'll talk about the weather soon. So as soon as you've connected everything up and you've powered this up, I normally say that I'm online within about 2 minutes, but give yourself 5 minutes, maybe longer. Now and again it'll want to do a firmware update or a software update, whatever you want to call it, which can take time as well. But you do get the option to choose whether to do that or not. I've done it every single time. I think it's had 3 or 4 updates, and now it's working far better than it did the very first few times that I connected to it, in terms of the upload and download speed. Now let's get into speed as the first thing, because that's probably the most important thing that you all want to know. I make YouTube videos which are usually around about 3 gigabytes in size, so I need to upload them to YouTube, and I also work online, which doesn't necessarily mean that I need so much of a faster upload, but certainly YouTube does. So YouTube, I've worked out that I need around about 10 megabits per second upload speed to get a decent video uploaded within sort of like half an hour to 45 minutes. So the download speed isn't actually that important to me. As long as it's more than 20 megabits per second download, then I'm quite happy with that. So on my regular little antenna, like say on EE, around about sort of like 8 meg download, about 5 meg upload. On Starlink, in this lovely remote location, it's 200 meg download and 20 meg upload. You've got an unlimited data connection. Like I say, I'm getting really good data connection speeds out of it, and so much so that you can use voice over IP. So for example, Mandy, my wife, she works remotely, and her job involves her using a headset connected to a laptop, and a laptop then goes via a VPN to her company's computer system, which operates a voice over IP phone system, and she can make and receive calls that way, and there's no lag. So as far as your ping sort of lag on this one, around about 50 to 80 milliseconds I would say is an average connection speed, which is perfectly okay for voice over IP without dropouts and without, you know, like the old fashioned, I used to call a long distance number and have to wait a second or two for them to hear what I'd said. There's none of that going on. It literally is just like making a phone call. And speaking of making a phone call, most modern phones allow you to make phone calls over Wi-Fi. In fact, mine right now says EE Wi-Fi call. So it's connected up to my van Wi-Fi, obviously not this one, but it will do when I connect to this one, and allows me, whenever I haven't got phone coverage or cell coverage, and it says no service, it will allow me to use the Wi-Fi data connection of Starlink to make and receive phone calls just like I'm connected to the phone network. So that's something that's really, really helpful as well. So a lot of people talk about the ability to boost the phone connection somehow with some sort of booster on the roof so that you can, you know, use your phone everywhere. Well, with this setup, you can still use your phone. You can make and receive text messages, WhatsApp calls, iMessages, and phone calls without a problem. So let's go into why I've not converted it to flat mount or 12 volt. And that is predominantly because I would say at least 75% of the time my 4G Wi-Fi setup that I've got in my van works fine for wherever I am. I use this if I'm going to locations where my SIM card doesn't work in that country, or for example like a recent trip around Scotland and the Lake District, you don't get very good phone network in these remote locations. So I then pop the Starlink up, and then I get, you know, everything that I need back again. So as I don't use it that much, it doesn't really make sense to me to spend around about £700, in excess of £700, to flat mount convert this, and to then convert it into 12 volt. The economics of that just don't work. And also there's a few other reasons as well why this may cause problems. So for example, right now I can demonstrate how all this works here sat in my van. Well, I couldn't do that if it was flat mount, because I'd have to then take it off the roof and then just show you a box or something like that. If there's a problem with my van, or if I, for example, I want to go and spend a month in an Airbnb and it's got no internet connection, then I can set this up in the Airbnb or wherever I am. So having it like this, for me, is far more versatile and flexible than having it roof mounted, flat mounted and 12 volt mounted. As far as sort of flat mounting is concerned, the other issue I've got with that is if you are exactly flat, then fair enough, most of the time there may be satellites going straight above you that will give you a connection, but your connection will not be as fast as the sort of correctly way to mount it, because this can orientate itself to give the best line of sight connection to the satellites, rather than doing that where it's not perhaps getting the best connection, therefore the speed isn't as fast. So flat mount could mean you're still working all right, you don't have to mess around and all this kind of stuff with mounting it every time. You can drive around with it, but you perhaps won't get the best or the fastest data speeds. And as I've explained, where I want to use this, I want to carry on uploading YouTube videos, so I want to do 3 gig uploads, and for that I need the best possible connection and the fastest data connection. And obviously the beauty of mounting it with the pole and the motors on the back and everything like that, rather than being flat mount, is that if I do park my vehicle on a slight angle, it will again orientate itself, whereas if you've got flat mount and you park it on an angle, you've then got to move your vehicle around a little bit to get the best connection. Otherwise you may well be having satellites over here, your dish is there, and again you're on a poor connection. So and talk about conversion to 12 volts. Well, this uses around about 50 watts as it is right now. And I've spoken to quite a few people who've done a 12 volt conversion on it, and it goes down to about 33 to 35 watts. So for the saving of 15 watts, do I want to go through all the hassle of converting it? Obviously I'll get no warranty as soon as I start ripping this apart. So that's another sort of side to it as well. For just a few watts saving every day. So the white covering seems to be plastic, so maybe that is just to deflect heat from the sun, so it keeps it as cool as possible inside, which is also something that I've thought about. If you flat mount it, there's an awful lot of space in there, and there are vents so that it can obviously breathe and expand or whatever. How are you going to cool it down? Are you going to put cooling fans in there? Don't know. I mean, I've seen some people cut this open, which, you know, is scary. The easiest way to do it is just warm up all the edges there, and just put a knife between the edge and the backing and the front edge there, and then sort of like you would if you were separating a phone screen or a tablet screen from the tablet. So yeah, just sort of warm it up, and using those little pick things, it's just glued on, so just separate the glue, and that then disconnects. You can then disconnect the motor, and it gives you a flat mount option. I was considering sticking it in one of those really useful boxes, just as kind of like a cheap way of flat mounting it, because they do a really useful box that's that size, just a little bit bigger. But like I say, I rather like the versatility of the way it is out of the box, so that's the way I'm keeping it right now. I will say that in very, very strong winds, like sort of gusts of up to 60 miles an hour, because between the base and the pole that clicks in, it's very secure. It won't come out until you press that button and click it out, but there is a little bit of movement in there. So in wind, you can hear it moving around. Obviously, I've never driven down the road with it on the top of the roof, but my experience of it is that in high wind, it can move a little bit on that base. Other than that, I've never had a problem with it. It's certainly not caused any problems with the way I've got it mounted, and the system on the roof seems to work out all right. Now, we talked about weather, high winds and things like that. It is weather sealed, so it works fine in the rain, although the more dense the rain cloud or snow cloud, the weaker the signal, ever so slightly, but you can tell. So if it is awful weather, you know, it's hammering it down with rain or flat snow, you can use it. That isn't a problem. You won't damage it, but the speeds will be diminished because between the dish and the satellites orbiting the Earth, you've obviously then got a huge amount of dense water in the way in terms of a cloud. So just bear that in mind as well, that in bad weather conditions, stormy weather conditions, you will get a lower data connection speed. In terms of, like say, snow, this has a snow melt function. So it does use a little bit more power. So again, like I say, it's sort of like 50 watts thereabouts, normal operation. It goes up to about 70 watts when it's got the melt mode on, and basically just sort of like heat this area of the dish to melt ice and snow for a couple of reasons. First of all, to make the data connection better. Also, the second reason is that it doesn't add extra weight to it if the snow was to build up. So it doesn't sort of like knacker the motors up or anything like that. So yeah, hopefully that's explained weather, usage in weather, power, why I've not converted it, an original purchase, lease, or ex-display cost, refurb cost, and then ongoing monthly cost. And the last thing I want to say about ongoing monthly costs is you can pause it at any time. So like I say, I've had this now for nearly 5 months, but I've only used it for 3 months. And the way that Starlink allows you to do this is to pause your subscription. So it's £85 a month, and you will get a text message off them usually around about sort of a day or two before you're due to be charged for your next month. And then you can go into the app and you can say, pause service. They don't care. As literally on the day that you're last paid up to, your service will work, and then it will stop working to the point you've not paid for it. The only thing, and I say only thing because this really caught me out and I was a bit miffed about it, if you're sort of paused so you can't use it, you go and find yourself somewhere, I've got no phone signal, you set it up, it needs a connection to Starlink's payment system to authorize your next payment and essentially reset up your subscription. So you're unpausing your subscription, starting it up again, and for that bit you need internet. So even though this tells you it's sort of like it's up and ready, it won't go online, which won't give you an internet connection, which won't allow you to say, please get me online and I'm willing to take the £85 cost for this month. So think ahead is what I'm saying with that one. If you know you're going to need it and it's currently paused, then make sure you stop somewhere with a phone signal and unpause your subscription. So get it going again, reactivate, whatever you want to call it, so that when you get to that remote location, your service is up and running, and when you switch it on, it will find its network, it will find your account, and you'll be online. And that can take up to 2 hours. So again, from experience, a bit narky that it's not kind of using its own internal network to get you running, because it can see that's there and knows your account details and all that. But hey, that's just the way it is. Hopefully in the future that'll change. So far in the occasions I've used it in forests and with trees around me, as long as I can see the sky, I'm usually all right. So obviously this is in its storage position. That's normally the angle it sits at when it's on the roof. And that means that if you park in a forest area, as long as you can see sky sort of like, within 20 meters all the way around you, I've never found it have a problem connect to the network. It seems to be able to cope with everything that I've dealt with it. I understand its limitations, so I don't park directly under trees, and I also don't park right up against trees. So as you can see, it's not in pristine condition. I did want to give it a proper test. I wasn't rough with it on purpose, but I have also just thrown it into the back of the garage now and again, because of where I store it. If it's dirty or wet or anything else, I'll chuck it in the back of the garage and wait to get somewhere warm and dry, and then clean it off and then store it back where it goes. And it's stored at the top of my mattress. So literally slides down the back of the mattress puts up to there, pillow goes over the top, this bit sits against the back of my van wall, and then it's just out of the way. The router and the cabling is stored under my mattress, and then when I want to use it, I'll just pull it out, plug it on top of my mattress and plug it in. Everything's therefore at the back of my van with all the cables I need, just to quickly pull it out, put it on the roof of my van, power this up, and then I'm done. Right, so back to the questions that people have asked me about it. What is the Wi-Fi range is the first question that I got. And that's with any average Wi-Fi router, you will get around about 50 meters, 20 to 50 meters of Wi-Fi range. Within 5 meters, you will get full signal and full speed. But obviously I live in a metal camper van. So usually if I go outside of the van, I'm usually sort of like limited to about maybe 15 meters outside of my van, and then I'll lose connection to it. Another question I had, is there any Ethernet ports on there? And no, there are no Ethernet ports on there, but I have a solution for that. And I also have a solution for extending the Wi-Fi range. So this little box, the GL-iNet AC1300 gigabit wireless router extender adapter, is absolutely brilliant. It's not expensive. I think it was about 70 or 80 pounds. It's powered by USB-C, so it doesn't need an actual power supply, which is great for van life. You can plug it into any USB adapter you've got. You can also plug a memory stick in there and access it, so like a DNLA player, whatever you want to call it. But importantly, you can use this to boost the Wi-Fi range of this. So this connects to this, and essentially the further away these two get, if you're over there now, then you wouldn't stand a chance. But if you connect to this repeater, which is closer to you, you can connect and that's all right. And then this is still within range of this, so then allows essentially via a third party, this little box, you to still use the internet. Now the beauty about this is because there are only 2 connections on the bottom there, there's no Ethernet, this wireless extender has 2 Ethernet ports on it. So that's really cool. And I use this usually to Wi-Fi repeat my Starlink to other people around me who are parked up, and if we're in a remote location and need the internet. So I can then put this in a little bag, put it on the roof of my van, and that then gives a really good range of Wi-Fi around my van. So yeah, I'll link this in the video description down below as well. So if you do want that as an option, that's great. You can control this all via 192.168, I think it's 8.1. That's IP in your browser, so it's fully manageable, easy to set up. So that's pretty cool. The other question I got was, how many devices can you get connected to this? I don't know is the answer to that one. I've had 12 and it worked fine. I'm assuming it's going to be 16, maybe 32, but I'm assuming it's going to be 16 devices will handle the Wi-Fi connectivity on this. So hopefully that's explained quite a few things about Starlink, and hopefully you are now a little bit more the wiser if you were looking at getting it, whether it now suits you and suits what you need for it, or if you had some questions about your Starlink and how to get the most out of it, you know, for example, sort of like extending its Wi-Fi range, or even just adding some Ethernet LAN ports. Hopefully that's helped as well. And if you were umming and ahhing about sort of flat mount kits and everything else, hopefully that's kind of covered a little bit of that for you as well. So as far as I'm concerned, it's fantastic. It does the job. I did get it on a special offer at the time, so I only paid £100 for it. Like I say, they did offers now and again. Like the current offer, like I say, is £10 a month to rent it, or I think it's £170 for a refurbished unit. So the costs do change a lot, so it's worth keeping an eye on that one. £85 a month for the ongoing cost. As someone who works remotely and earns a living through that, I see that as a fair cost. You are getting very fast, unlimited internet, phone calls and all that kind of stuff in the most remote places. So I think that is worth it. So if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll do my best in covering my experience with it. If I've not covered something that has been on my list so far, then ask in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you. Other than that, please do give it a like, and if you're not already, please hit the subscribe button for more content just like this. Right, thanks for watching then folks, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.